You need to step out of the VIP line, sir. This area's for executive passengers. The words hit like a gavel. Clean, loud, final.
The file seems
Officer
to have been
Grant didn't
erased,
whisper.
sir.
He wanted people
Erased?
to hear it.
How convenient.
Around gate 47, conversations slowed. Laptop bags froze midair.
Good morning,
Boarding
everyone.
calls dulled, and all that movement,
I know there
the
have been
steady
many
hum of an
questions.
airport morning, collapsed into
The read
silence.
directive is not a
Malcolm
suggestion.
Reed
It's
didn't
the new
move.
standard.
His black suit was pressed,
And it will be
quiet,
implemented
precise. No watch, no tie pin, no badge flashing wealth, only calm. He held a single tablet and a first-class boarding pass for Flight 482 to New York. But none of that mattered to Grant, who was already scanning him from shoes to jawline like a problem in human form. "Sir," Grant repeated, louder this time, "I said step aside." Passengers began to shift in the queue. A woman in a red coat whispered. He didn't even raise his voice. Another man leaned to his son. "You see, happens every time." Malcolm finally looked up. His tone stayed level. "Is there a problem with my ticket?" Grant snorted. "You tell me." He snatched the pass from Malcolm's hand, fast, deliberate, a small act meant to sting. Fake upgrades. Happens every week. Maria Lopez, another officer, approached from the next checkpoint. "What's going on here?" "Possible fraud," Grant said. "Guy's claiming VIP clearance, but he's got no record." She studied Malcolm's calm face. "You travel like this often? No luggage?" Malcolm smiled slightly. "I travel light." That smile, controlled, almost patient, only made Grant more irritated. "You think this is a joke? People pay for these seats." Malcolm replied, "So did I." Grant stepped closer. "I don't think you understand where you are." "Oh, I do," Malcolm said. "Perfectly." For a moment, the tension pulsed through the glass terminal like static. Maria's gaze darted between them. A few travelers pulled out their phones. The red recording light blinked. Barely visible, but there. Grant reached for Malcolm's tablet. "We'll check this with security." Malcolm didn't resist. "Be careful," he said softly. Grant laughed. "Why, is it special?" Malcolm's voice didn't waver. "Yes, it's worth about $5 billion. The words hung in the air, absurd to everyone but him. A man near the window chuckled nervously. Maria frowned. "Excuse me?" Grant rolled his eyes. "Yeah, sure. $1 billion files. Maybe I should call the FBI too." He dropped the tablet onto the inspection counter with a thud. "Let's see how long this story lasts when we pull your record." Malcolm exhaled slowly, as if timing the breath with the seconds of humiliation that always preceded power. "Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here." Now, back to Malcolm Reed. Grant tapped on the screen, scrolling through data he didn't understand. Graphs, market codes, corporate tags. He muttered, "Looks like gibberish." Then, with one careless swipe, he hit delete. The screen flashed red. File erased. Someone gasped. Malcolm's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed even. "That was your last mistake." Grant smirked. "What, you going to report me?" Malcolm's eyes lifted, calm and absolute. "No, I'm going to own the reason you wear that badge." And for the first time, Officer Grant hesitated, just long enough for the cameras to catch it. Fade to black. Grant's laugh cracked through the terminal like static. "Own the reason I wear this badge? That's cute." He turned to Maria. "Run a background check on this guy. I bet the ticket's fake." Maria hesitated. "We can just scan his code, Grant. He's cleared through TSA Prime." Grant waved her off. "Not until I say so." He held up the tablet he'd just deleted. "And if this turns out to be stolen, he's not getting on any plane today." Malcolm's voice was steady. "You already deleted corporate data. I'd stop before you make it worse." Grant leaned forward. "Worse for who? You?" Passengers nearby were pretending not to look, but failing miserably. A man in a grey hoodie whispered, "He didn't even resist." A flight attendant passing by slowed down just long enough to see the tension, then quietly moved along. Maria's radio buzzed. "Checkpoint Delta reporting delay. VIP clearance pending confirmation." She frowned. "That's his line. It's flagged." Grant smirked. "See? System agrees with me." Malcolm's calm didn't break. Systems follow people, and people follow bias. The words landed heavier than any threat. Grant's grin faltered, but his pride refused to step back. "You think you can out-talk me? I don't need to." Malcolm's eyes flicked to the security camera above. "You're recording it yourself." Maria glanced up too, realizing it. Every word, every action was already being archived. Grant turned, defensive. "You think you can scare me with cameras?" No, Malcolm said quietly. I'll let the truth do that. Then, a voice from behind the counter. A younger staffer, Ethan, maybe 29, wearing a trainee badge, whispered to Maria, "He's on the VIP list. Look, read, Malcolm J, priority level 1. Maria blinked. "What?" Grant snapped. "Stay out of this, rookie." But Ethan didn't move. "He's legit. The system just updated a second ago." Grant stepped toward him, furious. "Don't contradict me in front of passengers." Ethan swallowed hard. "Sir, if we're wrong," Grant cut him off. "If he were legit, corporate would have confirmed it already." He turned back to Malcolm, his voice dripping with authority. "Final warning. Either step aside or we'll detain you for interference." Malcolm didn't move, didn't blink. The silence around him was unnerving, that kind of stillness that feels louder than shouting. Then he spoke, low and precise. "You think detention scares me?" Grant crossed his arms. "You're damn right it should." Malcolm's gaze locked on him. "I built the company that designed your access system. You're standing inside my code." The words hit Grant harder than he wanted to show. Maria's brows furrowed, processing what she'd just heard. "You built," she started, but Malcolm was already pulling out his phone. One tap, one message. A calm female voice answered instantly, crisp through the speaker. "Mr. Reed, board verification complete. Transfer scheduled. Do you wish to proceed?" Grant blinked. "What the hell? Who's that?" Malcolm didn't answer him. "Yes, proceed," he said simply. "Confirmed," the voice replied. "Ownership will finalize in 20 minutes. Maria stepped back. Ethan's jaw dropped. Grant looked from one to the other, trying to piece it together. "What ownership? What is he talking about?" Malcolm glanced at the glowing screen, the reflection of corporate logos flipping one after another. Horizon Air, Summit Transport, Allied Aviation. The colour drained from Grant's face. Then Malcolm's tone shifted, softer, colder. "You stopped me because of a suit you didn't understand, but you just triggered a chain that'll decide your next shift." Maria whispered, "Who is he?" No one answered. The airport hum returned, faint and uneasy. Somewhere over the intercom a voice announced, "Attention all gates, temporary system audit in progress." Grant stared at the frozen monitor on his desk. "System error," it read. Malcolm turned toward the boarding area, eyes calm. "No," he murmured, "system correction." And for the first time that morning, Officer Grant didn't have a word left to say. The air inside the checkpoint had changed, not louder, not calmer, just charged, like the space between thunder and lightning. Grant's radio crackled. "Unit 4, we've lost data sync with corporate." He frowned. "Run diagnostics," he barked. But the screen on his desk was already flickering, the airport's internal network scrolling with alerts neither he nor Maria had ever seen before. Ethan whispered, "That's the Airline system. It's merging with something." Grant snapped, "Shut up. It's a glitch." Malcolm didn't move. He watched them scramble like a storm unraveling its own mess. "You think you can pull some hacker stunt to scare me?" Grant said. Malcolm's voice was calm, measured, like someone reading from a playbook written years ago. "I don't pull stunts. I execute acquisitions." The word acquisitions hung there, sterile, corporate, lethal. Maria stepped closer, her tone lower now, respectful but trembling. "Sir, who are you?" Malcolm met her eyes. "Someone who's been stopped before. Someone who learned that power doesn't need permission." A woman from the next lane whispered to her husband, "He's not bluffing." Phones were raised, lenses glinting in the terminal light. Grant slammed his palm on the counter. "No filming. Everyone put those down." But the more he shouted, the more phones appeared. Then Ethan's monitor beeped again, a digital chime that silenced even Grant. Across the screen, transfer of ownership. Horizon Air, confirmed. Maria's lips parted. "That's impossible." Grant leaned over. "Fake, has to be." Ethan shook his head. "It's coming from the Federal Registry portal, sir. It's real time." Malcolm checked his watch, not to impress, but to measure impact. 17 minutes early, he murmured. He tapped his earpiece. "Ava, update legal. We're live." Ava's voice came through, clear and cold. "Copy that. All terminals now recognize Reed Enterprises as majority owner." Grant's jaw slackened. That can't." "It can," Malcolm interrupted, "because I signed it before breakfast." Maria took a small step back, her authority melting into awe. Grant, though, doubled down, pride refusing to die quietly. "You think buying a few shares means you can order us around?" Malcolm turned slowly toward him. "No, I think buying the Airline means I already do." Someone gasped audibly. The moment landed like a verdict. Grant's hand twitched toward his badge, but Maria stopped him. "Grant, don't!" He yanked free. "He's faking this! He's trying to intimidate us!" Ethan interjected quietly. "Then why did HQ just email an internal memo, signed by him?" Grant froze mid-motion. Maria turned her screen around. There it was. The subject line glowing, "Immediate leadership transition, Malcolm J. Reed, CEO." Grant's face drained of colour. Passengers started clapping, tentative at first, then louder. Someone shouted, "That's what justice looks like!" Malcolm didn't smile. He simply adjusted his cuff. "You mistook silence for weakness," he said. "That was your last mistake." Grant looked around, desperate. "This isn't fair." Malcolm's tone stayed quiet. "Fairness isn't what you gave me. It's what I brought back." A voice came through the overhead speaker. "Attention all staff. Checkpoint command transferring to executive oversight." Maria lowered her head. Ethan stood frozen, eyes wide. Grant backed away, still holding his badge like a lifeline. "You can't just—" Malcolm cut him off. "Suspend his access." Ava's voice, done. Grant's badge beeped red. The sound echoed through the room, one sharp electronic tone that felt like a door slamming shut on arrogance. No one moved. Malcolm looked at him, not angry, not gloating, simply resolute. "This isn't revenge," he said quietly. "It's correction." And as he stepped past the checkpoint, the security gates opened automatically, not for privilege but for ownership. Maria whispered under her breath, almost to herself, "He really bought the airline." Malcolm paused just once and looked back. "No," he said softly, "I bought back my dignity." Then he walked through the terminal, calm, steady, untouchable, and every camera in the airport followed him. By the time Malcolm reached Gate 47B, the chaos behind him had turned into whispers. Every monitor in the terminal now displayed a silent update, system maintenance, new executive oversight in progress. Maria Lopez stood frozen beside the metal detector, headset still on, voice trembling as she spoke to the unseen dispatch. Yes, ma'am. Confirmed. Ownership transfer verified under Reed Enterprises." Her tone shifted mid-sentence, from procedural to reverent. It wasn't every day you learned the man you'd just doubted signed your paycheck now. Grant, meanwhile, hadn't moved. The red glow from his disabled badge still blinked on his chest, small but humiliating. He whispered, "You set me up." Malcolm didn't turn around. "No," he said evenly. "I set a mirror. You broke yourself." Passengers around them murmured, their phones still raised. One young woman, maybe mid-30s, holding a toddler, said softly, "He didn't even raise his voice." A man in a pilot's jacket replied, "He didn't have to." Security HQ called through Maria's earpiece, "Officer Lopez, escort Mr. Reed to the executive lounge." She hesitated, then looked at Malcolm with a strange mix of respect and regret. "Sir, if you'll follow me." He gave a small nod, the kind that didn't need words. They walked through the now quiet terminal, every step echoing louder than the announcements overhead. As they approached the glass corridor leading to the private lounge, Malcolm caught a glimpse of his reflection, calm, composed, yet older than he remembered. A flash of memory flickered. Age 23. Stopped at another airport. A security guard had said the same thing. "You don't look like you can afford this seat." Back then, he'd swallowed his pride. This time, he'd bought the plane. Maria broke the silence. "Sir, I didn't mean." He stopped her gently. "You followed orders. The system trained you to doubt people who look like me. Now it's my job to rewrite that training." Her eyes softened. "I guess we all needed that audit." He almost smiled. "Exactly." Inside the lounge, the glass doors opened automatically, sleek, silent, welcoming. The manager rushed over, red-faced, nearly tripping over his own greeting. "Mr. Reed, we didn't realize." Malcolm raised a hand. "Don't apologize. Learn." The man froze, nodded quickly. "Yes, sir." Behind him, Grant appeared, escorted by airport security, still arguing under his breath. You don't get to ruin careers." Malcolm turned just enough for his voice to carry. "You ruined your own when you decided someone didn't belong." He faced the manager again. "Effective immediately. Every staff member undergoes equity retraining, and every complaint filed in the last year gets reviewed by me." The manager nodded again, writing it down as if his job depended on it. It did. Then Malcolm's phone buzzed. Ava's voice was calm as ever. "Press release ready. Headline reads, Reed Enterprises finalizes full acquisition of Horizon Air following incident at security checkpoint. You want to approve the quote?" "Read it," Malcolm said. Dignity isn't granted, it's restored. He exhaled slowly. Perfect. Maria stood nearby, eyes lowered. Sir, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. Malcolm met her gaze. Don't be sorry, be different. He turned toward the wide window overlooking the runway. A plane lifted into the blue, sunlight bouncing off its wings. Before today, he said quietly, I flew under their rules. Now they fly under mine. The camera panned out, his figure reflected in the glass, framed by motion and silence. No anger, no shouting, only presence. And then the final line, calm as a heartbeat. Power doesn't need noise. It just needs to arrive. Fade to black. Title card, Black CO Series, based on true patterns. The storm was over, but the silence that followed carried its own gravity. Inside the executive lounge, everything gleamed. Polished marble floors, muted lighting, glass walls that overlooked the runways. Yet the space felt heavier than it looked. Not because of the luxury, but because of what it had just witnessed. Malcolm stood near the window, untouched cup of espresso on the table beside him. The steam had faded, but his thoughts hadn't. His reflection merged with the aircraft taxiing beyond the glass, a quiet symbol of control reclaimed. Ava's voice, camera through his earpiece again, this time Zofter. Corporate's PR team is asking if you want to release the footage, the security tapes, the checkpoint audio. It's all your snow. Malcolm's eyes stayed on the horizon. No, we don't humiliate people. We educate them. A pause. Understood. He glanced at the press-release draft on Hitterblatt, his new tablet, the one Ava had ordered within minutes of the incident. The headline already made rounds on business channels. Malcolm Reed finalizes Horizon Air acquisition following incident at International Airport. The comments below divided the world in two. Power move. Another staged PR stunt. About time someone made a point. Malcolm didn't read further. He'd seen that cycle before. Praise, doubt, outrage and silence. Maria Lopez entered quietly, her uniform pressed again, badge replaced. She stopped a few feet away. Mr. Reed, she began, her voice careful but sincere. Corporate asked me to extend a formal apology. He turned slightly toward her. Keep it, I prefer informal truth. Her shoulders loosened, a fragile relief passing through her. I'll remember that, she said. He studied her for a moment. You know, he said, systems don't just discriminate by design, they discriminate by convenience. It's easier to doubt than to understand. Mariana did slowly. Today changed that form. Good, he said, because what happens next won't be about punishment, it'll be about proof. She frowned, curious. Proof. Malcolm picked up his phone. In and Hor, I'm announcing a full audit in every passenger complaint involving bias in this airport over the past 10 years. We'll publish the findings publicly. Maria's eyes widened. You're serious? He looked at her, calm but unflinching. I don't make statements. I make corrections. From across the room, Ethan stepped in, the young trainee who dared to speak earlier. Mr. Reed, he said nervously, the staff's been talking. They want to know if they still have jobs. Malcolm nodded. Most of them, do thest, will have to relearn what respect looks like. He walked closer, lowering his tone, soonly Ethan could hear. Don't lose that instinct you had today. You saw truth and spoke up. That's leadership. Ethan blinked, caught off guard. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me, Malcolm replied. Just do it again when it's harder. The speakers in the lounge chimed with a corporate announcement. Effective immediately, Horizon Air leadership transition confirmed. CEO Malcolm Reed to address staff and media within the hour. Has set down his coffee and straightened his jacket. There was not rump in his posture, not race of revenge, only resolve. Ava's voice returned. You ready for the press conference? Always. As she walked toward the exit, Maria called after him. He sitn't but onest. Sir, when they stopped you, what were you thinking? He paused at the doorway, half-turned, expression unreadable. I was thinking, he said, how many more of us got stopped today and never had the chance to keep walking? Then a step through the glass doors into the noise of cameras and flashlights. The automatic doors closed behind him with a soft click, sealing the chapter not with anger, but with clarity. And somewhere in that hume of reporters, baggage wheels and boarding calls, the story of one man stopped at security had already become something bigger. A mirror for everyone still waiting to be allowed through. The media hub in Terminal C had never seen a crowd like this. Dozens of cameras faced a small podium branded with the new logo. Horizon Air, a Reed Enterprises company. Microphones, reporters, flashes, chaotic, expectant. But when Malcolm Reed stepped up, the chaos quieted. He didn't walk fast, didn't wave, didn't smile. He moved with the deliberate calm of someone who already owned every second of the room. Even the hum of jet engines outside seemed to fade. A journalist called out, Mr. Reed, is it true you were detained at security this morning? Malcolm adjusted the mic, looked straight ahead and said evenly, I wasn't detained. I was delayed by perspective. The line landed like poetry disguised as a press quote. Flashes erupted. Another reporter shouted, "Was this acquisition retaliation?" Malcolm's eyes narrowed, but his voice stayed steady. "No, retaliation is emotional. Correction is structural." Behind him, a wide LED screen lit up with a timeline of events. 10:02 a.m., security incident logged. 10:19 a.m., ownership transfer confirmed. 10:37 a.m., public statement scheduled. The precision itself felt like justice, clean, time-stamped, undeniable. Maria and Ethan stood quietly off to the side, wearing new ID badges. Their faces reflected a strange mixture of awe and responsibility. Malcolm continued, "Bias isn't a glitch in the system. It is the system until someone rewrites it. So, starting today, Horizon Air launches the Dignity Audit Program." He let the words breathe. "Every passenger complaint involving profiling, disrespect, or dismissal will be reviewed publicly. Not privately, not quietly, publicly. We will turn silence into documentation." A murmur rippled through the room. One reporter raised her hand, skeptical. "Isn't that a risky move for your brand?" Malcolm didn't hesitate. "Transparency isn't risky. Pretending to be fair is." Cameras clicked. That sentence would run in headlines before the press even ended. He continued, voice lower now, more human than corporate. "When I was 23, I was stopped in an airport just like this one. I had a boarding pass and a dream. Only one of them was accepted. Today I own both." The crowd went silent. Reporters stopped typing. Even Maria looked down, hiding tears she didn't expect. Malcolm took a breath, letting the weight of the story rest exactly where it needed to. "I'm not here to shame individuals. I'm here to expose patterns, because power without empathy isn't leadership, it's noise." He paused again, then added softer, "And I've had enough noise." The room erupted in applause, not loud or chaotic, but purposeful. It sounded like relief. Ava's voice came through his earpiece. "Social feeds are exploding, Dignity Audit trending worldwide." Malcolm's lips barely curved. "Then the message is boarding on time." Reporters leaned forward for more, but he stepped back from the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, I won't take more of your time. Flights are waiting, and so is change." He turned toward the exit, but one final question cut through the clamour. "Mr. Reed, do you forgive them?" He stopped mid-step. The silence thickened again. Then he said, not turning around, "Forgiveness isn't free. It's earned." He walked away. The flashes followed him like echoes of truth, finally catching up to power. By noon, the airport wasn't an airport anymore. It was a story, one that had already left the runway. Every screen in the terminal, every phone in the cafe, every whisper in the boarding lines was about him. The clip of Malcolm Reed's quiet line, "Retaliation is emotional, correction is structural," had crossed 2 million views in under an hour. News anchors spoke his name with the same rhythm they used for politicians. Hashtags bloomed like wildfire. Dignity Audit. The Reed Protocol. Power doesn't shout. On TikTok, travelers posted duets of their own experiences. A young woman filmed herself outside Gate 47B, saying, "That's where it happened." A man in Atlanta commented, "Finally someone with money and backbone." Others were cynical. "Yeah, right, another PR stunt." But even those posts carried his message further. In the airport cafeteria, Maria sat beside Ethan, both still half stunned. "You ever seen something like that?" Ethan asked, scrolling through his phone. Maria shook her head. "Not something. Someone." She leaned back, still processing the shift that had turned their morning into a movement. Across the country, Horizon Air offices buzzed with mixed energy. Some executives whispered about liability, others about legacy. But in one corner office in Manhattan, Ava Chen watched the data roll in. Stock up 6%, engagement through the roof, employee satisfaction climbing. She smiled faintly. "He did it again," she murmured. Meanwhile, Malcolm sat in a quiet lounge 30,000 feet above the ground. Private jet, minimal crew, silence that didn't demand explanation. The window beside him framed a sea of clouds tinted gold by the setting sun. He wasn't scrolling, wasn't checking numbers, just breathing. He thought of the faces, Grant's disbelief, Maria's awakening, Ethan's courage. He thought of his younger self, 23, told to step aside for looking out of place. That version of him had swallowed his pride and boarded anyway. This version had bought the boarding gate. Ava's voice came through his headset again. "CNN just called you the quiet architect of accountability." Malcolm chuckled softly. "Catchy, unnecessary. They're asking for an exclusive tonight. Decline it. Any reason? I'm not the story, he said. The mirror is. Outside, turbulence brushed the wings, but the plane never wavered. Neither did he. Down below, Grant sat in an HR office surrounded by silence. His badge lay on the desk, inactive, next to a termination letter marked effective immediately. He stared at it, numb. He'd spent a decade thinking authority came from uniform and tone. Now he knew it could disappear with a single red light. At the same time, Maria refreshed her inbox. A new company-wide email had arrived. Subject line, Mandatory Equity Training, Phase 1, Perspective Before Policy. The first slide quoted Malcolm directly. You can't fix a system you won't admit is broken. She smiled. For once, a rule that actually felt right. Back in the sky, Malcolm finally lifted his cup of coffee. Still warm, still untouched since morning. He looked at it for a long second, then said quietly to no one, Next time, I'll drink before the storm. He closed his eyes, exhaled slowly, and the hum of the jet filled the silence, not as noise, but as proof that calm could travel farther than rage ever would. The glass tower of Horizon headquarters gleamed like a monument to corporate order, sterile, spotless, and self-assured. Inside, the boardroom was already full. 12 executives sat around a long marble table, their suits as stiff as their postures. They spoke in whispers until the elevator doors opened. Malcolm Reed stepped out, flanked by Ava Chen. No entourage, no theatrics, just presence. The same calm that had silenced an entire airport now filled 30 floors of skyline. The room stood up, half out of respect, half out of fear. Mr. Reed, said Charles Davenport, the interim chairman, rising from his seat. We didn't expect you back so soon. Malcolm walked to the head of the table. You didn't expect me at all, he said. The line hung there, simple, factual, final. Charles forced a smile. There's been some confusion about today's events. Ava set a folder on the table. Confusion is natural when power changes hands. One of the older executives cleared his throat. Sir, with all due respect, this sudden acquisition, well, it's highly unorthodox. We had no forewarning. Malcolm looked at him. Neither did I this morning, yet I adapted. A murmur rippled through the room. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Every syllable was surgical. He tapped the folder once. Inside, a sleek, single-page document titled The Reed Directive, 12 sentences, each one a rule. From this day forward, he began, Horizon Air will operate under a new model, transparency before tradition. He turned the page. No more anonymous complaints buried in HR. Every case of misconduct, bias, or breach of dignity goes directly to executive review, and to me. An executive scoffed softly. That's unrealistic, Mr. Reed. You'll drown in paperwork. Malcolm didn't look up. Then maybe we've been swimming in the wrong ocean. Ava hid a small smile. She'd seen this side of him before, the quiet dismantling of excuses disguised as logic. Another voice, sharper, from the end of the table. And what of Officer Grant? I heard he's filing a grievance. Malcolm nodded once. He can file what he wants, but he'll have to spell it correctly under the new literacy requirement. Accountability. Laughter rippled, uneasy, involuntary. But Malcolm didn't laugh. He continued, tone lower now, as if the microphone of history had been turned on. This company has been profitable. That's easy. Now it will be principled. That's harder, but it lasts. He let silence follow, long enough for the sentence to settle like gravity. Charles shifted, trying to regain control. Mr. Reed, our shareholders expect stability. Malcolm cut him off gently. They'll get it, but not the kind that hides rot under luxury. He looked around the table, meeting each pair of eyes. You've all built an empire of access. I'm here to build an empire of worth. The projector behind him flickered to life, displaying a slide that simply read, The Reed Directive. Dignity is non-negotiable. The room fell silent. One by one, executives lowered their gaze, not in defeat, but in something new, awareness. Ava gathered the folders, closing them neatly. Board approval vote? Malcolm nodded. Not needed, it's policy. Charles exhaled, almost a sigh. You're rewriting the rules. Malcolm turned toward the window, the city stretching endlessly below. No, he said quietly, I'm reminding you they were never fair to begin with. Outside, the late evening light caught the skyline, casting long reflections across the conference table. For a moment, no one spoke, and in that silence, the company's next chapter had already begun. The city had fallen into its nighttime hum, windows glowing like constellations across steel. From the 72nd floor of Horizon Tower, Malcolm Reed stood alone, jacket off, tie loosened, sleeves rolled. Behind him, the skyline was a sheet of light. Before him, silence. Ava entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You've been staring at that window for an hour," she said. "I'm not staring," he replied. "I'm remembering." She set a cup beside him. "I figured you'd need this." He didn't take it. Not yet. For a while, neither spoke. The only sound came from the city's heartbeat below, taxis, sirens, the low rumble of everything that never sleeps. Finally, Ava broke the quiet. "You know they're calling you a hero online. The man who bought his own justice." He exhaled. "Heroes need applause. I just needed change." Ava studied him, the wariness in his eyes, the precision in his calm. "You ever think about how far you've come?" He smiled faintly, almost painfully. "Every night I try not to." She leaned against the desk. "When you said at the press conference that you were stopped before, was that real?" Malcolm's gaze drifted toward the dark horizon. 23, he said. "Charlotte Airport. Red eye to San Diego. I'd saved 6 months' pay for that trip, my first pitch to an investor. Security pulled me aside, said my ticket looked suspicious." He paused, voice quieter now. "I missed the flight. The investor never called back. My mother drove 4 hours just to pick me up. She didn't ask what happened. She already knew." His eyes softened, but his tone didn't break. "That night she said one thing. 'Son, don't argue with walls. Learn how to build doors.'" Ava listened in silence. The line sat between them like scripture. He turned from the window. "So I built doors, companies, systems, policies, but doors only matter if others can walk through them too." Ava nodded slowly. "And that's what this audit is." "No," he said. "That's what my life became." He finally picked up the coffee, took a slow sip, and smiled faintly. "Still cold." Ava chuckled. "It's been sitting here as long as you've been staring." He nodded, then set it down. "Fitting. Some things only make sense once they've cooled." The lights flickered on the next skyscraper over. Another corporation, another world, pretending it ran on logic, not ego. Malcolm watched them for a moment. "They'll come for me tomorrow," he said. "Articles, interviews, half-truths. They'll call it performative." Ava met his eyes. "You ready for that?" He smiled, quiet and sure. "They can perform. I'll keep correcting." She turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "You ever get tired of being calm?" Malcolm thought about it. "Calm isn't absence of fire," he said. "It's the shape it takes when it learns patience." He turned the lights off. The city reflected back. 1,000 tiny eyes watching a man who refused to flinch. As he walked past the glass, his reflection split into 2. The man the world saw now, and the boy still holding a ticket that was never scanned. He looked at both and whispered, "We made it through, Mom." Ava didn't hear the words. The room had already gone dark. Morning slid into Manhattan like light through glass, sharp, clean, uninvited. The city below pulsed with its usual arrogance, but inside the Reed Enterprises penthouse, calm reigned like law. Malcolm was already seated in the private conference suite when Ava entered. "Your 9 o'clock's here," she said. "Langford from Atlas Air." He didn't look up. "The man who once told me I'd never understand aviation because I didn't grow up near an airfield." Ava allowed herself a dry smile. "You ready for him?" "I've been ready for 5 years." The door opened. Richard Langford walked in, tall, silver-haired, confident in that inherited kind of way. His handshake came with a smirk. "Malcolm, or should I say Mr. Reed, the man of the hour. Quite the performance yesterday." Malcolm's tone was surgical. "You confuse transparency with theatre, Richard." Langford laughed. "Please. I've seen the headlines. Black CEO buys Airline after being stopped by security. It's catchy, I'll give you that. Good PR move." Ava's pen clicked once, sharp enough to cut the air. Malcolm stayed composed. "If I wanted PR, I'd have smiled for the cameras. I didn't." Langford waved a hand dismissively. "Come on, Malcolm, we've all dealt with bad press, but buying a whole airline over one bad morning?" He leaned in. "You make us look irrational." Malcolm finally looked at him. Not angry, not defensive, just deliberate. "You mistake emotion for correction. Again." Langford blinked, unprepared for the echo of yesterday's viral quote. Malcolm continued, voice low but steady. "I didn't buy an airline to prove a point. I bought it to prove a pattern, and I'm just getting started." Langford chuckled, but it faltered halfway. "You really believe this audit thing will last? You'll bury yourself in lawsuits." Malcolm leaned back, unbothered. Then I'll own the courtroom too. Ava hid a smirk. Langford shifted uncomfortably. Richard, Malcolm said, calm, returning to command, do you remember 5 years ago at the investor summit in Zurich? You told me no one would fund a man who still looks like the passenger, not the pilot. Langford's jaw tensed. I may have. You did, Malcolm interrupted. And you were right. They didn't fund me, so I funded myself. Silence. Only the hum of the city filled the room. Langford tried for recovery. Look, Reed, I didn't mean. Malcolm raised a hand. You meant every word. But don't worry, I don't hold grudges. I hold equity. He turned his tablet around. On it, a digital document bearing the Atlas Air logo glowed softly. Last night, your board accepted my offer to acquire 21% of your company. Welcome to partnership. Langford's eyes widened. That's impossible. Nothing's impossible, Malcolm said, only unnoticed. The room went still. Langford sank slowly into his chair, the arrogance draining from his face like colour from dawn. Malcolm folded his hands. You once said I'd never understand the air. You were right. I don't study it. I own the sky it moves through. Ava's gaze flicked between them, the old world shrinking, the new one expanding, all in silence. Langford finally managed, What do you want? Malcolm stood, straightening his cuffs. Compliance, cooperation, and a culture that stops confusing civility with superiority. He paused at the door. You can start with that. He left the room without another word. Langford stayed seated, staring at the tablet, the inkless proof of how fast power changes hands when dignity stops asking for permission. Outside, the skyline blazed in gold. Ava caught up to Malcolm in the hallway. That was brutal, she said. He shook his head. No, that was balance. And as the elevator doors closed, his reflection stared back at him. Not the man who had been stopped at a checkpoint, but the one who'd learned how to build runways from it. By late afternoon, the city itself seemed to hum in sync with his name. News tickers rolled across skyscraper facades. Reed's dignity directive reshapes aviation industry. First black CEO to own 2 major airlines in US history. But Malcolm wasn't in any newsroom or boardroom. He was in South Queens, inside a repurposed hangar now branded the Horizon Training Facility. Sunlight spilled through the open doors, washing over rows of simulators, laptops, and bright-eyed recruits wearing navy blue uniforms that still smelled new. Ava walked beside him, tablet in hand. You didn't tell me you built this already, she said. He smiled faintly. Didn't need to tell anyone. Needed to finish it first. An instructor greeted them, an older black woman with silver braids and the kind of confidence that came from surviving decades of rooms she wasn't supposed to be in. Mr. Reed, she said warmly, welcome home. He shook her hand with quiet respect. You ran the Delta apprenticeship program in the 90s, didn't you? Her laugh was soft. You've got a good memory. Some people remember injustice, he said. Others remember who helped them survive it. A group of cadets nearby turned, whispering, recognizing him. Ava watched as one young man, barely 20, stepped forward nervously. Sir, he said, is it true? You were stopped at an airport and then bought the company? Malcolm met his eyes. Not bought, he corrected. Reclaimed. The young man smiled wide, shoulders straightening with pride. Malcolm glanced around the hangar. Every one of you will get your license through this program. No unpaid hours, no hidden fees. You fly because you've earned it, not because you look the part. Applause rippled through the space, not loud, not rehearsed, just honest. Ava looked around, absorbing the moment. You realize you just turned humiliation into infrastructure, she whispered. Malcolm's tone was quiet. That was always the plan. He walked over to one of the flight simulators. On the side, a small plaque gleamed in the sunlight, in honor of Sarah Reed, who built doors where none existed. He paused, fingertips brushing the engraving. A breath caught in his throat, small and invisible but real. Ava stepped closer, lowering her voice. Your mother? He nodded. She never flew on a plane, but she built every reason I could. Outside the hangar, cameras waited again, reporters ready for statements, lenses hungry for sound bites. But inside, for once, Malcolm didn't need an audience. He turned to the recruits. You'll face people who underestimate you. Don't argue, don't explain, just outlast. A student raised her hand. Sir, what if they block the door? Malcolm smiled. Then remember, doors are optional when you own the runway. Laughter and applause followed, rolling through the hangar like music. As he and Ava stepped outside, the evening sun hit the tarmac in sheets of gold. A new Horizon Air jet thundered overhead, its tail logo freshly updated, a single line rising through the clouds. Ava shaded her eyes. She's beautiful. Malcolm watched it climb higher. So are second chances. He slipped on his sunglasses, the light catching his reflection. Behind him, the hangar buzzed with life. Instructors shouting, engines humming, futures taking shape. He took one last look at the sky his name now owned, then said softly, "This time we all get to board." And for the first time in years, his smile wasn't controlled. It was complete. Night returned to the same airport where it had all begun. But it didn't look the same anymore. Security lines moved easily, passengers smiled, and at every checkpoint hung a small metal plaque that read, "Respect is the first clearance." From a distance, the sound of intercoms mixed with quiet laughter and rolling luggage wheels, the ordinary music of fairness finally working. Malcolm Reed stood on the observation deck above Terminal A, hands in pockets, watching flights depart into the glittering dark. Ava joined him, her coat fluttering in the soft wind. "Full circle," she said. He nodded. "Only difference is, this time the circle's open." Below them, passengers streamed through the security gates. No tension, no raised voices, just order with dignity. Maria Lopez was among them, now in a new uniform embroidered Equity Operations Manager. She was guiding a nervous older man through his first digital check-in, her tone kind, patient. Malcolm smiled faintly. "That's the audit working in real time." Ava followed his gaze. "You think they'll keep it that way?" "They will," he said, "because now they know someone's watching, not to punish, but to remind." The loudspeaker overhead announced, "Final boarding for Flight 482 to New York. The same flight number, the same route." Ava caught the irony. "You want to board?" Malcolm shook his head. "Not tonight. I'm exactly where I need to be." For a long moment, they simply watched the planes lift, each one carrying people who would never know that their quiet boarding was once a battle someone had to win. Then Ava spoke softly. "You ever think about how fast everything changed?" Malcolm's eyes stayed on the runway lights. "It didn't change fast," he said. "It just took too long to start." She smiled. "You sound like your mother again." He exhaled slowly. "She'd say the same thing every time we passed an airport. One day, you'll go further than their eyes can follow." He looked up, voice lower now, almost a whisper. "I think I finally did." A family passed nearby, a black father, 2 kids, and a mother laughing as they hurried to their gate. The youngest boy waved at Malcolm, unaware of who he was. Malcolm waved back. The boy's father nodded in silent thanks, a recognition without words. Ava turned toward him. "You know they'll make a movie about this, right?" He chuckled. "Then let them get one thing right. It wasn't revenge. It was repair." She raised an eyebrow. "That your closing line?" He shook his head. "Not yet." He stepped closer to the glass, his reflection framed by the rising planes. Voice calm, steady, almost like a prayer. "I didn't buy the airline to fly higher. I bought it so no one else gets stopped for standing tall." Ava watched him, quiet, proud. The camera would have pulled back there, the man silhouetted against the night, the runway lights flaring beneath him, the sky wide open. Then, his voice again as narration, "Power isn't about walking through doors others closed. It's about making sure they never close again." The screen faded slowly to black. White text appeared across the silence, based on true patterns. Black CEO series, written in dignity. Fade out.